Welcome to a special edition of Stories of Brisco and Bradshaw. I will be Bradshaw, and today an incredible treat because we don't have one but two Native American Hall of Famers. We have our friend, the Chickasaw Native and Chickasaw Hall of Famer, Mr. Gerald Brisco, and we have another Hall of Famer from the Native American nation, also a founder of Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he's got a huge influence on my life with both his music, Freebird, and the wrestling group that took their name Freebird, because Michael Hayes has been a huge benefactor to me. He's also got a great new album out, Rise Again, right now. One of the founding members of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Mr. Ricky Medlocke. Ricky, welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys? Let's make a correction. I wasn't a founding member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. I was just an early member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. The founders were actually Ronnie, Gary, and Alan. Right. And they founded the band back in the probably late 60s, and then later on I came in as one of the original drummers. So
you're the founding member of Blackfoot then, right?
Yes, I was a founding member of Blackfoot, lead singer, lead guitar player, along with Jack Spires and Greg Walker and Charlie Hargreaves. Yep.
Well, it's all our style of music, man. You can't imagine how many miles that we rode up and down the roads and interstates screaming your lyrics. I mean, we thought we were singing, but think about it, man. Our voices were gone. I don't know how you guys did it every night because our voices were gone.
You must have had a very sore throat.
I did, man. I was 200 miles from Tampa to Jacksonville. We must have sang Freebird 50 times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But anyway, yeah, man, we got a new, what I ended up doing is a lot of times when Skynyrd comes off the road, we have a lot of time on our hands. And, and I get, it's not good for me to have a lot of time on my hands. And, I can only do so much fishing, and then I want to play music. So, what I ended up doing was putting a side band together called the Ricky Medlocke Band, and went about, recording new songs. This will be the second song that I've released this year. First one was called Never Run Out of Road, and this one, Rise Again. And here we are. It's doing pretty well. It's getting attention around. It's starting to build. The attention to what I've got going on. And I've got some dates coming up in January that I'm playing with the band. And I don't know, man, I have a lot of fun with it. I love to play music. I just love to play the guitar. I love standing up in front of people and entertaining. And that was basically one of the prime reasons why I ended up doing this. I ended up having a side band because I just couldn't stand to go for month after month after month and be involved in music. So there you have it.
Yeah. Ricky, have you ever tried to retire? Have you ever tried just to be and I'm serious about this because me and Mr. Brisco, but we're on the road for most of our life, and we get crazy now. We both tried to retire. It didn't work out for either one of us.
That word is not even in my vocabulary. I don't even know what that means. Because I think that if you take that word into your life, you're done. Basically in the next 2 or 3 years, after everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to retire and kick back," and live the good life. 9 times out of 10, I've seen a lot of people within 2 or 3 years they're out of here anyway. So
good life, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. You know what? I'm not. That word is not even remotely close to me. And I'll play music in some capacity. Probably long after, Lynyrd Skynyrd has called it a day, which is not going to be anytime soon. And I figured, here's the way I figure it. I figured if Keith Richards can do it, I can do it.
Amen.
Well, the guys of us that love creative guys like you are glad you're not retiring because you keep giving us great stuff like Rise Again. Your start in the music industry, you fell in love with it with your grandfather, right?
Yeah, my grandfather was the catalyst to me getting into music anyway. My grandparents adopted me at a very, very, I was a baby, 3 months old, and they raised me, in the environment of music because my grandfather played, he had bands, he was a pro, he played, probably 6 or 7 different instruments. And not only did he play them, he played them well, played them great, enough to where, you know, he was in and out of different situations where he would be in bands because they needed a certain instrumentation and he could fill the bill. And he was a road guy. And I was raised basically on the road with my parents. Wow. So at the age of 3, he saw my interest in an instrument, the banjo in particular.
Wow.
Because he was a big 5-string banjo player. And so he saw my interest in it. And he went out and he bought me a miniature banjo and set about teaching me how to play. So once I'd learned how to play it, the basics, you know, and be able to sit there and sing a little bit with him, the show that he was on that originated out of Jacksonville was called the Toby Dowdy Show. And it was on the CBS affiliate station, WMBR, which is now WJXT. And he went to Toby one time and he said, look, next week, I'd like to bring my grandson on to play a song and sing a song with me. I've taught him banjo. I've taught him, you know, a couple of songs. What do you think? And Toby says, well, how old is your grandson? He said, he's 3. And he goes,
oh, wow.
Toby was like 3? He's like, yeah. He goes, well, I got to see this. So he brought me on the next week. We did a song, and the outreach of people watching the show from all over the South, Mid-South, Southeast, their cards and letters came in, and it was so overwhelming that I was invited back, and I stayed for 5 years till I was 8 years old.
Wow. So you're a 5-year veteran at age 8.
Terrific. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Unbelievable. How do you go to like preschool at that point where you're like a star and you're having to go like to first grade, second grade?
I'm telling you, that was a trip. Even back then, you know what I mean? Because most of it, our parents were watching you on TV, you know?
Yeah.
And, but it was cool, man. It was one of those things where in that time period, at the age of 5, I learned how to play guitar. And I was self-taught on the guitar because my dad had some incredible guitar players with him. And my dad, you know, he taught me 3 basic chords, which was G, C, and D. And after that, he handed me the guitar and he said, well, now you're on your own. Go learn it yourself. And so watching his guitar players and watching Scotty Moore that played with Elvis Presley, big influence, you know. As a matter of fact, I got to see Elvis because of my mom and dad getting tickets. I got to see Elvis right before my 7th birthday in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Florida Theater. And that did it for me. I remember, pardon me, I remember my dad driving home that night. And he looked at me and he says, well, son, what did you think? And I looked at my mom and dad. I said, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Wow. And so playing guitar, and in the midst of it all, I learned how to play drums, which I didn't realize would benefit me later on down the line. And all of a sudden, you know, the drums came around and I was playing in Lynyrd Skynyrd as one of the original drummers of the band. And you know what, man? I've had a great musical journey, I guess you should say. I've been able to experience some incredible things because of music. I never doubted myself. I never really doubted that I wouldn't get to a point to where, you know, people wouldn't want to hear what I was playing or anything like that. Little did I know that it would be to this level. I've been blessed by being a member of 2 of the greatest Southern rock bands ever, and I'm still in one of them. And so, you know what, man? It's a great journey for me. It continues. I want it to continue until one day the man upstairs calls the bus home and I got to get off the bus. You know what I mean?
Man. Let's hope that's a long ride, Ricky.
And I hope
that
it's a nice, and I hope it's a nice looking tour bus. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you remember when you signed your first autograph?
Oh, geez, no. You know, I, I'm not even really sure about that. You know, it's really funny when you go to school
Yeah.
and you're on television and you have to be in class, and you know, you look around and people are just kind of staring at you, and you know, it's really funny because you don't, as a kid, you don't take it that serious. You know what I mean? But others do.
Yeah.
And but I thought it's quite an experience. I got pictures of it, of me playing in the TV studio. And what was so cool back then, the guy Toby, he would have special guests come on about every month, every other month or whatever. I got to be around the original Lassie, you know, the original dog. I got to meet Roy Rogers and Trigger, and my hero, my all-time hero, which my dad didn't tell me was going to be on there, and kept it as a surprise. My all-time hero had Clayton Moore as the Lone Ranger come on the show.
Oh my goodness!
And he had Silver with him, and he
no Tonto though, huh?
Oh, no Tonto, no, I wish. But he put me up on Silver, rode me around a little bit in the parking lot,
cool.
and at the very end of it, he popped a silver bullet out of his belt and gave it to me.
Oh,
and I got it somewhere in my stuff at home. I couldn't tell you where, but I'll probably run across it one day, or my loved ones will run across it, you know.
Yeah, when a vampire comes around, you can find it too.
Yeah, really. But you know what, man? Those kind of things, and I think the biggest thing in my life is I've been able to share the stage with such incredible musicians. You know, with the guys in Blackfoot, Ronnie, Gary, Alan, Leon, Billy, all the guys that I share the stage with now. My better half, she's had an incredible musical journey in her life, singing with some of the biggest names that you can think of, you know, starting with maybe she was born and raised in Memphis. She sang 16 years with Kid Rock, and she was with Joe Walsh through 4 tours. On the James Gang, she, you know, appeared in TV specials with all these different people. It's been on so many albums. So, you know, I've been able to share the stage, like I said, with some of the most incredible musicians that I ever could have imagined. And never did I realize as a kid that I'd be sitting here today talking about it with you guys. You know?
Yeah. Now, how did you meet the Van Zants? Was it at school chums, or what was the relationship there?
Well, we were all raised on the west side of Jacksonville. And the west side of Jacksonville was not your ideal area, you know. You either fought for survival or you ran, you know what I mean? And so, you know what? My dad had these dances in Jacksonville. And he used to have them on the weekends when he would be home, have his own band play these square dances on a Friday and Saturday night at these different locations. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Van Zant would come to those dances, and they watched him on TV and on the Toby Dowdy Show. And so actually they got to know the Van Zants, and through them, I got to know the brothers. And you know, all of us, like Ronnie and even Donnie, you know, we all had, you know, we had our teen bands and would play different locations around Jacksonville as the teen clubs were open then. And there was a ton of them back then. And, you know, you would crisscross paths. Each band would loan each other whatever you needed gear wise, or, you know, it was a real it was a real tight camaraderie thing around Jacksonville. It really was. And I mean, back then you even had a group called the Second Coming, which the Allman Brothers came into Jacksonville, took part of the Second Coming. The Allman Brothers, they joined up with them. The next thing you know, you got the Allman Brothers band. And I used to go and sit at the house in Riverside where they used to rehearse. I would sit out on the porch, the steps, and I would listen to them play. And back then it was quite an experience. But there was such music coming out of Jacksonville that when the Allman Brothers made it, then Skynyrd ended up making, man, all the record companies flooded into Jacksonville, wanting the next big thing, and they called it, quote unquote, Southern rock. That's how it got its name. We didn't think anything about it because we loved the blues, we loved rock and roll, and we formulated our own thing, and we just thought we were rock music. We didn't think we were Southern rock, but that's what they labeled it as. So be it, you know.
One of the stories I found most interesting about you was, I guess, 1970 era where you were just going back to Lynyrd Skynyrd and just kind of wanted a job. You didn't really plan to be the drummer, but that's how it happened, right?
Yeah. The story goes is that I was living up in New Jersey with Blackfoot, and one of the band members got involved with the manager, female manager, and they kind of got romantically involved together. And so basically a lot of favoritisms were played, and, you know, a lot of really uncomfortable situations. Well, I decided, you know what, this is not going anywhere. This is something I really don't want to do, and I don't really want to be a part of. So I happen to have Alan Collins's phone number. And from New Jersey, I called Alan. And Alan picked up the phone. And I said, "Hey, Alan, it's Ricky Medlocke." He goes, "Oh, hey, Ricky, what's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm not happy in my situation where I'm at up here in New Jersey, and just wanted to know if you guys needed maybe somebody to set up your equipment or drive your truck or load the gear or whatever. Just wanting a gig, you know, wanting a job." And at that point, Alan says, "Do you still play drums?" And I said, "Well, sure. As a matter of fact, I do, you know." And he said, "Well, you need to call Ronnie." And I said, "Okay." Didn't really, you know, extend the reason why at that point. He just wanted me to call Ronnie. So Ronnie being the leader of the band and all that stuff, I called up Ronnie. He gave me the number, and I called Ronnie, and Ronnie picked up. And I said, "Ronnie, it's Ricky Medlocke." He goes, "Oh, hey, Ricky, what are you doing? What's going on?" You know, I went, "Well, Alan told me to call you." I said, "My situation up here in New Jersey is not good, and I was wanting to know maybe if y'all needed a guy to set up equipment, a roadie, truck driver, whatever." And I said, "Because I'm looking for a job." He goes, "You still play drums?" I said, "Well," I told Alan, I said, "Yeah, I have." I said, "I do have been playing a little bit along, sat down on them and playing, but nothing any serious." But I said, "I still play drums." And he says, "Well," he said, "Bob Burns is leaving us." And he says, "In 2 weeks, we are supposed to start our first record in Muscle Shoals, Alabama." And I went, "Oh." And he goes, "We need a drummer." I went, "Sign me up." And I said, "Give me some time. I'll sell off some gear, grab my guitars, and try to figure out how to get down there." And Ronnie said, "We'll send you a ticket." Wow. And so they sent me a ticket up to New Jersey. I went to Newark, New Jersey, jumped on a plane, landed in Jacksonville. They picked me up that afternoon. We went by my parents' house, and lo and behold, as we pull up to my parents' house, here's my old man out on the front porch with his dobro playing. And had his dobro across his lap there, which Ronnie took to right away. And so he went up there. They visited Ronnie, Gary, and Alan, talked to my old man while I was getting ready. Then I came out, and they were just into what my old man was doing, playing the blues, because he was always a Delta blues, country bluegrass player. And so we went to rehearsal that night, and I started rehearsing the songs that would become the record from the Muscle Shoals collection. And also it was called Lynyrd Skynyrd's First and Last. And I'm on the front cover of it. And there you go. That's how it all happened.
So you make a phone call just to kind of be a truck driver or a grip and end up as the one of the original drummers of the greatest Southern rock band of all time. That's a pretty good outcome.
Yeah, you would say so. You want to be a roadie and end up being the drummer of the band, not a
right.
Not a bad switch.
Yeah. It was probably one of those old dime payphones too. You had a bunch of money and the slots here.
Yeah. Well, to be really informative, and I love this story anyway. But fast forward to 1995. At the end of '95, I'd been in Blackfoot. All those years it was having success, and then the band came down. Record sales slowed down. Times changed. All the hair bands were in then, and that was the going thing. Southern rock basically took a back seat, and there you go. Well, what's funny is that I got a phone call from Ronnie's widow, Judy, and Judy says, I'm inviting you to take part in the premiere of Freebird, the movie. And they're going to have an all-star jam the night before. And I said, wow, I'd love to do this. And she said, come on. So with my band, I still had a pickup band as Blackfoot. And we had been doing good, playing the club circuit and the theaters and stuff like that. But it just really wasn't going anywhere. And so I canceled, about 2 weeks worth of dates and took off for Atlanta. My manager and I did. And we get to Atlanta, and I see Gary and Billy and Leon and Johnny. And it was kind of something that I'd been missing for a long time. I really felt it in my heart. And we were all glad to see each other. And so that night for the jam, I sang I Ain't the One with Johnny. And then we played Train Train with the pickup band. And so the guys were standing on the side of the stage. My manager, their manager, Gary, Billy, Leon, Johnny. And as we came off after Train Train, Charlie Daniels grabs me and says, look, go back out and play another song. And I said, okay. So I grabbed an acoustic guitar that was sitting there, and I walked back out, and I'd played at the Fox Theater quite a few times, even with my old man playing harmonica with us. I got pictures of it, man. And so I walked back out, and I got a great reception from the audience. And I go back out right by myself, and I said, look, haven't worked this song up with the band, so I hope you like it. I'm going to play it for you right by myself on acoustic and sing it. And I played Highway Song. And that's the way the song was written anyway. And when I finished it, I got a standing ovation from the audience. And little did I know they were standing over there. And their manager said to mine, Gary has been talking about getting Ricky back into this band for quite some time, but the timing was never right. he said, but now we should do this. We should explore this now. So they talked to me about it. Gary did. Well, I went on back home and, pardon me. And I didn't hear from Gary in January. I heard from him in February. And it was pretty interesting because I went back home there and I was waiting. And so I was at my studio there in March. And a phone, you know, I used to get the old phone messages with the tapes and everything. You'd call up and get your messages. Well, I called up and got my messages, and there was one message on there. And the message says, hey, Brother Ricky, it's Gary Rossington. I'm going to come down to Fort Myers and I'm going to audition you. And I want you to learn I Ain't the One, Saturday night, That Smell, and Freebird, like Alan played them, because you're about the closest thing to Alan that I could possibly want to get in the band. And he said, and I'll come down and audition you. And if you pass the audition, I'll give you $1.50 in a Snickers bar. And I kind of was like, okay. So he came down. I played through I Ain't the One through the lead. He reached over there and cut it off. He said, you want to do this? I said, you damn right I do. He said, let's call Johnny. Called Johnny. Johnny asked me the same thing. And at the very end of Johnny and my conversation, I said, Johnny, look here. You're questioning me if I want to do this because I've always been a lead singer, front man, you know, so forth and so on. I said, you know what, Johnny, my old man always told me, if you can't ride in the back seat of a Cadillac, you'll never get to be the driver. And I said, I'm riding it. I'm in the back seat. So I've been in the band about 10 years. And one night we get up on the bus after a gig, and I climb up there, and I'm right after Freebird. I'm, you know, sweaty and hot, you know, and all of a sudden I get up there and I look over on the galley. There in the galley, I look on the counter and I see something, and I go over there and look, and lo and behold, it's a Snickers bar with $1.50 wrapped up in it.
Awesome.
And there was a note that said, paid in full.
Awesome.
Tremendous. A decade later.
That was Gary Rossington.
That is awesome. And your grandfather was the one that wrote Train, right?
Mm-hmm. Back in about, oh gosh, I would say I think it was around 1938, something like that, you know, and we've got at home, we've got the original version. And what happened with that is that we were looking for one more song, and our manager who was producing the record said, we need one more song to finish this record off. We need some kind of novelty tune, you know? Well, I don't know how it hit me. I guess it's one of those magical things.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it just hit me. I looked at everybody, and I'm sitting on the drum riser, and I said, you know, my old man had a song called Train, and I'm just wondering, you know, if we could do something with this to fit the bill of what we need. And I started messing around with it, the chords, and the band started messing around with it, and we started jamming and singing lyrics and this and that. Next thing you know, we've got a song. And not only did we have a song, we all looked at each other and knew, you know, there was really something to this. So we recorded it. My old man played the opening intro harp to it. That sounds like a train. And we put it on the Strikes record. And this is so funny because the record company thought that the hits were going to be I Got a Line on You and Wishing Well. And our producer, he argued with him. No, he said, I'm telling you, the hit is going to be Highway Song and Train. Well, at that time, Atlantic said, well, they'll never play a song that lasts that long. And he goes, no matter what, I don't care. Put it on the record. We're going to put it on there. So we put it on there, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know, Highway Song and Train were the hits.
Wow. Wow. Did your grandfather live long enough to hear that rendition of it?
Oh, Lord, he used to come out on the road with us.
Oh,
He
great.
used to come out on the road with us and play the harmonica.
Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome.
I used to call him the world's oldest rock star when I'd introduce him, you know. He used to love it. He loved traveling with us. He loved being around us. Yeah. My God, it was so funny, man. He'd walk out in front of an arena full of people, and you know, he would start it on his harp, and he couldn't hear himself. You know what I mean? And he'd stop, and then he'd try to start it again, and the crowd would go nuts, and he'd stop. And so after 2 or 3 times, I'd have to walk out to him and put my arm around him, going, Pop, just play it. Go ahead, play it. They'll hear it. And so he would do it, and people would go crazy, you know. And he, for several years, off and on, he was with us live on stage, and it was just incredible, you know. It really was.
Did he ever give you any, you know, he's an old rocker, and that's where you got a lot of your influence from. Did he ever give you advice as far as music or about what your set was or production or anything?
Well, what he did say, you know, he always said, you gotta do your thing. You gotta be true to what you're doing. You know, I ended up trying to play all these different instruments and, you know, emulate him, what he did. And he was like, don't do what I do. You do your thing. He said, you know, stick to one instrument or a couple of instruments, whatever. And I took that advice. I mean, he was so smart and had so much insight. And I've always said he was my biggest influence. I mean, I loved him like no other. And you know, he left us in 1982, and that was tough. That was you know, there goes my guy, you know. Yeah. And but you know what? His influence on me, and even Ronnie. I mean, if you think about it, Ronnie wrote My Old Man was part of the influence to write Curtis Lowe. Wow. When you hear him
my favorite, by the way.
When you hear him say he used to play an old dobro, used to play it across his knee. Yeah. That was Shorty.
That was great.
And so you know,
Ronnie. You talked about Ronnie. About how creative he was. Was he one of the most creative guys you were ever around?
Oh my God! You know, when I think about it, and I mean, I was on a set of drums sitting there, and here's this guy sitting over here up against the wall in Hell House, and he's sitting there, and we would play songs over and over and over. And at the time, you wondered to yourself, well, why are we doing this? And to him, he liked there being no questions. He liked everything being spot on, dead on it, knowing your parts, never changing it, just do your thing. And you know what? I'll give you an example. We were playing Simple Man, and we had been playing it all day long, all day. And him just sitting there fumbling with his hair and, you know, singing to himself. And Ronnie never wrote lyrics down. He wrote them in up here. And we'd take a break, and we'd go out of Hell House down to Black Creek, and we'd fish for a while. And, you know, then we'd come back and rehearse. And I'll never forget, we had played through Simple Man, and all of a sudden, it was just mind-blowing. We started it, and all of a sudden he's just stood up and started singing it. And I've often said the guy had an old soul. For a guy that young, to been able to write those lyrics and to have people understand exactly what he's talking about and could relate to him is a genius. And Gary Rossington said to me one time, he said it to all of us, you know, he said, you get one genius in a family, you've done it all.
Yeah. Wow.
And Ronnie Van Zant to me was the original, one of the best Southern poets that ever lived.
Wow.
And one of the best songwriters that I know, you know, ever lived, you know?
You when you hear something like that, Ricky, you got what we call them in the wrestling goosebump moments. I mean, when you hear something like that, you know you can just feel it, and your entire body turns into goosebumps. Do you guys get those same feelings when you hear something like that?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, my old man used to call it chicken skin, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And you call it chicken skin music because I still get that effect. I still
good.
my gal can tell you, I can be sitting thinking of a song or she can be singing one or we'll hear one on the radio or on TV or whatever. And sometimes she'll look at me and she'll go, look at your arms, you know? And I'll just be, she's the same way. And it's a feel. It's a feel and a heart thing. You know what I mean? A soulfulness. Yeah. And boy, even right now, when I'm up on stage playing all those iconic songs, I get the chicken skin. Yeah. I get in a whole different, I go somewhere else. Yeah, I'm someplace else, you know, and by the time we end Freebird and I come out of it, I'm like, wow, you know, what was that all about?
Yeah. Those feelings are second to none. I know when John come back to sometimes you're in the ring when you do something, you hear that crowd, and you just feel it. And you kind of got to rub your skin to get rid of that feeling, you know. And you hate doing it because it feels so damn good when it happens, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, there's nothing like, I don't think, and not to sound, you know, a little jaded or crass or whatever you want to call it. Very few tunes do that to me anymore.
Yeah.
I actually can be listening to, you know, listening to a movie, streaming a movie or a show or something, and a song might come on that does that to me, and I don't get it from radio. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the soulfulness anymore. There are some great artists out there, of course, but I don't get that same overwhelming feeling, you know, that I used to, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned Muscle Shoals before. What is it about that place? I know Leon Russell and a lot of like Hank Williams, a lot of them go there. What was it about that place that just made magic out of music there?
Well, you had the original studio, which was Fame. And, you know, had the Muscle Shoals rhythm section there that made all those great records. Nobody could understand why everybody started congregating in that little old Tri-City area.
Everybody.
And it was funny because the original Muscle Shoals rhythm section was Barry Beckett, Roger Hawkins, David Hood, and Jimmy Johnson. And those guys were on so many hit records. I mean, if you go back and you look at their history, it's unbelievable. Well, the next thing you know, Jerry Wexler, you know, told Jimmy and Jimmy Johnson and Barry and the guys, you get your own studio and I'll bring you every Atlantic act. We'll bring them down here and have them record. Sure enough, they started bringing everybody. I mean, Aretha, you know, Wilson Pickett, Rod Stewart, you know, Bob Seger went down
You're
there.
right. It wasn't just rockers. I mean, there was every genre of music, wasn't it?
It was everybody wanted to be there. Rolling Stones, man, I'll never forget the story. The Rolling Stones brought about 3 or 4 tractor trailer trucks down there with equipment. They backed it in. Jimmy told me he'd never seen so many amplifiers in his life. And they wanted everything in the studio. And that's where they went and cut a bunch of their stuff. Well, when we first went there, it was incredible because we were green. And, you know, we went there and started in 71. And we started recording. And we learned so much from Jimmy Johnson and David Hood about the process of recording, because the process of recording is so much different than playing live. And I owe it to them, man, as far as recording goes. You know, their expertise was unbelievable. It really was.
Ricky, what happened to the live album? You had a great live album in the 80s, and you ended up touring over in England. It's a wonderful story about how your guys didn't want you to go, and you ended up going to UK and becoming, you know, even a bigger star over there. What happened to the live album? You know, when I was, you know, in junior high school, live albums were everything. When I was in college, but that live album is not the same thing anymore. What happened? Because they were so great.
Well, boy, Atlantic over here, the head of Atlantic, I won't mention any names or whatever, but the head of Atlantic did not want us to go to Europe. The head of Atlantic over in the European side saw that our record was starting to break and starting to take shape, take hold over there in England, Germany, and France, and wanted us to come over and tour over there and promote like anybody would. Okay. Well, we went against the record company over here. And in doing so, really pissed off the American side of the record label. But we went over there and was blowing wide open. I mean, we sold just an incredible amount of records. We were on the road with Scorpions. We were on the road with Iron Maiden. We were on the road with Deep Purple. We were we were playing with everybody and blowing it wide open. We finally hit this one festival, the Monsters of Rock at Donington. Had 180,000 people there that day. And when we played, we were so dead on it that the write-up that came out of it called us the Darlings of Donington because we blew it wide open over there. The next thing you know, we're blowing records out of the distribution centers left and right, you know. Well, we came back to America and we felt it. We felt the change. We knew we had really, you know, probably whacked our Larry off, you know, in doing what we did. But guess what, man? We figured that the fans over here, if it was blowing open that big over there, we knew that it would take off, you know, for at least filtering back over here. Well, you know, we put out the Tomcatting record and it did, but, you know, the record company didn't care about, you know, promoting right. But we went on the road, man. I got to tell you, over here, we were playing with anybody and everybody. I mean, we were touring with AC/DC over here. We did a whole thing with them, a whole thing with Nugent. a whole thing with Foreigner, with Journey, with, I mean, everybody. And we became a sought after special guest to these bands because they knew that we were good for a great amount of asses in the seats, and they took us. So after the Tomcat album ran down and we were getting ready to do the Marauder album, we went back to Europe and continued to do what we did. Well, then we came back over here and we did the Marauder record. And the next thing, it was the same thing, you know, with the record label. And so we went back to Europe and we decided we were going to do a live record for just Europe. That's the live record, the live highway song record that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It got written up over there with several magazines that it was the top record, #1 live record of the decade.
Wow.
In Europe. The record label over here, they didn't care. They weren't about to put it out. And I got to tell you, man, it really caused a lot of dissension and problems within the band. And when you got a record label that's going to do that, there's the downfall of a lot of groups. When the business gets infiltrated into the band to where it causes the band to start having internal fights and internal arguments and all that stuff, your days are numbered, you know? And I got to tell you, on the Strikes record in particular, we had been going out and playing, you know, we had a great show for the record, a great show going out, and we had been putting Left Turn on a Red Light in the show. And that song was getting as big of a response as Train, Train, and Highway Song. And we knew we had another single. We knew it. And management went to the record label, and he argued and he argued and he argued. Dude, they never would budge, and they never would release it and promote it as a single. They dropped the whole ball.
Oh.
And I got to tell you, man, the taste I carry in my mouth for the record label right now today, you know, y'all can just imagine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly can.
We have the same thing about our promoters, you know.
Yeah. I know, man. It's a shame that bands get caught up in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it causes the problems that it does. But you know what? They say that's the record business. You know?
That's right.
That's entertainment. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Ricky. We want to. I know we've kept you a long time, but I got to ask
you, man.
A couple things. One is a good friend of ours. You know, I grew up on Southern rock and loving what you guys did. I also grew up on Michael Hayes, the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. So when I found out what a great honor it was to have you with me and Mr. Brisco here, I text Michael. I said, "Hey, you guys got your name from Freebird, right?" And he goes, "Of course we did." And I said, "Well, we're interviewing Ricky Medlocke and one of the original members." He goes, "Oh yeah, I love Ricky. I text with him all the time. He was on my album."
Yeah.
How in the world did you meet the craziest human being that may be on the planet's history, Michael Freebird Hayes?
Dude, he got a hold of me. And this is when he was living in Texas, in Dallas. And he got a hold of me and wanted to know if I would play on his record and then produce it. And I said, yeah, why not? You know?
Were you guys aware of him, or were you guys aware of the group?
We were very aware of them. Okay. I mean, you could not be aware of them with
exactly
the name,
Texas,
with the name the Freebirds and you know and rest.
Yeah, since he stole your name.
Well, I had been a huge, and still am. I mean, talk to Michael often, you know. I mean, I'm still a big wrestling fan. I grew up love watching wrestling, going to wrestling, and the whole bit.
I
I don't.
Curtis at the Jacksonville Coliseum, right?
Oh, oh yeah, man. And you know, when ZZ Top and us did the Millennium Tour in '99, 2000, me and Dusty was a huge wrestling fan, and
Dusty and Billy both, right?
dude, we'd get on airplane flights when we had a Monday off, and we would fly to whatever city and go to Monday Night Raw. And but Michael and I, man, I did whatever Backstreet, what was it, Bad Street, USA, I think it.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since. And he comes out to shows, and I love Michael, man. He's a choice individual. He really is.
Yeah, he's a different individual for sure.
Oh, he's definitely different. You know what I mean? But you got to admire a guy that's been through all that game of wrestling, and he's still with it.
Yeah, you know, relevant too.
I admire that about an individual, man. I really do. You know.
Yeah, Michael, when I first got the Sportatorium in Texas, you know, growing up watching the Von Erichs and, you know, being a wrestling fan.
Oh, yeah.
I got to sit back there with the Freebirds and the Von Erichs. And Michael was the only one that talked. He had that much respect from everybody else. You know, Michael's a really smart guy. He's a savant. He's very good at what he does. And he was a terrific draw in wrestling. You know, he could talk them in, as they say.
Yeah. Oh, listen, he was the best promoter for him. No doubt. Yeah. You know, he had the gift of the gab. You know, he could get on that camera. I mean, to me, he was every bit as good, probably if not better, than some of your top name wrestlers doing his promotions. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was that. Yeah. Oh,
hey,
Ricky,
go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, that's something before we let you go, I know something's very important to you and also to me.
Yeah,
is the indigenous missing people, the females that go missing from our reservations and from our areas out there. How did you get involved in the indigenous cause?
Well, you know, I was inducted into the Native American Music Hall of Fame, right, back years ago.
And you're a Blackfoot. You're a Blackfoot.
No. My father was Lakota, and okay. My mother was part, you know, Creek Cherokee. Mm-hmm. And I got involved in this whole, this whole missing and murdered indigenous women thing by being, you know, in relations with other natives, you know, and started hearing about this and then started reading about it. And finally, I wanted to do a TV show called Taken. Well, we tried to get it off the ground with networks and, you know, the streaming platforms, and nobody would take it. They didn't want to touch it. Well, you know, I find that so heartbreaking, because what the American public don't realize is that this problem is of a national epidemic, right, that's been going on probably over 100 years. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you've got small children, young girls, young teenagers, young women, older women, whatever, that has been taken. They never find them. Or if they do find them, they find them deceased. And you know, in certain situations, certain circumstances, and in ways that would horrify us. But you know what? When I got the chance through this record label, Rock the Cause, we did the song, and Rock the Cause is a label that wants their artists, when they do a song, to donate to, you know, their favorite charitable source or one that they pick, whatever. And so I have a really great friend. His name is Gil Birmingham. And if you're not familiar with Gil, he's on Yellowstone. He's the tribal chairman on there.
Mr. Rainwater.
Yes, sir.
That's his character. That's his character.
Yep. And Gil and I have been friends for quite a while. And Gil is a very, celebrated actor. Been in a lot of stuff. If you check his history out, he's quite a guy. So I called him up and asked him, Gil, if you were going to donate to a great charitable source for natives, for the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement, pardon me, who would you go to? He said, let me call Taylor Sheridan, because Taylor donates to someone that's reputable. I said, okay. He called me back in less than a day and said, Taylor Sheridan said the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. They spearhead a lot about the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement. And that's what I did. Major part of your proceeds goes straight to them, whatever the downloads make or whatever the merchandise make. And we've done it again with this new one. Same thing. And I urge everybody that hears me, look at what's going on and look what's happening and see that it's for real. I hope at some point one of these politicians one day will be a lot more vocal about it,
right,
and a lot more helpful about it than they are now.
Yeah.
We will see.
Why do you think it doesn't get the play that it should get? Because it's two different laws. You think it's the tribal laws and the white man's laws that really just don't jive with each other, or they just don't care?
Well, if you want to know my true feelings, it's an interesting deal. You'll be watching television, and at any given time, if you're watching commercials or news or whatever, they'll name every individual race except Native Americans.
Right. Yeah.
You never hear Native American. Never. And as my old man my grandfather used to say, we invited everybody over for dinner and they never left.
We didn't invite them; they barged in.
But
John always says that we should build a wall. We should have built that wall years ago and across the East Coast there, so those conventions could have gone on our land.
Well, you know what, man? Think about it. It's 2025. We really, as far as natives go, the natives have made certain advantage, movements within the country, but not really with the help of just anybody other than themselves.
Right.
And I got to tell you, man, it's kind of a shame that you got the original people here in this country, and the original people can't get the attention, even half the attention that a lot of these other people get. And I find that to be very sad, man. I do. I mean, if a normal individual would go ride through Pine Ridge Indian Reservation,
right,
they would be stunned, But seems like nobody wants to take the time. Nobody cares. And so there you go. Hopefully one day, I'd like to, I would like to get into a position where, I could be more helpful and more vocal. And I got some celebrated individuals who are friends of mine that I really love as brothers. And you know, I go to these things called the Dream Catchers Gala Awards up in Canada, like off and on every year or so. And I mean, you got celebrated actors like Gil and Wes Studi and Graham Greene and all these guys, you know.
Right.
And we're aging now. We're starting to age, and now you got the younger ones coming up. And I hope that the younger ones have been taught to hold on to their history and their you know, the legacy that the older ones are leaving, and you know, be proud of what they are, and don't just meld into everyday society and just be counted as just anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
stand on your
definitely.
own, you know, stand on your own and be counted, man. You know?
Yeah, when I was growing, like you said, be proud of who you are. When I was growing up in Oklahoma, you know, in rural Oklahoma,
Yeah.
you know, we were called every name in a book, and people just don't realize that. And you know, I think that's the reason we learned how to fight and wrestle at an early age, because my grandparents were the same. Stand up and be proud of who you are, you know. And
Right.
so when somebody, hey, half breed, or hey, blanket, or something like that, man,
Yeah.
they had a damn fight on their hands, and I don't think that happens anymore because of our society, you know.
Well, you know, Jack and I used to be that same way. The original drummer of the band, you know, and we were the same identical way, bro. You call us names or whatever, we're ready to go to it, you know. So anyway.
Yep. Hey, Ricky, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to have you on. The song is, the album is Rise Again, and you can get it all the different places. You can get a million different albums. But when Jerry's been keeping this from me for about a month or two, a secret, until he got you, because he knew how big a deal it was to me and to him to have you on as, you know, the greatest Southern rock band that ever walked on God's green earth. It's great.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me today. And let's continue to push forward and rock.